bankrupt itself. He had invoked a dream only to see the last remnants of it destroyed.
Churchill was beginning to fade a little. I know that he was very conscious that he no longer wielded the real power. That was being wielded by the United States. They had overtaken us. When they first came into the war, we were the predominant power, even from a military point of view. Roosevelt wanted to bring the British Empire to an end. They made no bones about it.
The Americans believed that Churchill's underlying aim in the war was to recapture Britain's lost imperial glory. It was a plan to restore the world the Prime Minister loved the most, the 19th century world of unabashed great power politics. The Americans would have none of it. Increasingly, they excluded Churchill from discussions on the shape of the post-war world. Britain's power was over.
I suppose very reluctantly and very privately, he realized that we no longer disposed of the strength, even on the scale with which we disposed of it when the war started. It was a pretty bleak prospect for him. The appearance of glory was all there. You know, the sitting in the chairs and the cavalcade and the saluting sentries and so on. That was magnificent. But underneath it, the whole thing had been washed away.
Around that time, there was a sort of private lunch that I was invited to down at Chequers. It was the most beautiful day, rather like today. Birds singing in the trees, and this was an English garden, if ever there was one. And really the idea that you could feel that anything was wrong, or whatever would be wrong, was alien to the atmosphere of that particular afternoon. I suddenly saw her sitting on a sofa quite apart from everybody else, looking again with a sort of strange look, as if she was sort of peering into the distance, into the future, and seeing something that was not attractive to her.
Security was very tight at that time. The IRA had become even more serious threats, and so she was constantly protected from mixing with ordinary people the way she used to. Downing Street had become a bunker. The fight with the cabinet was intense. You'd had these big resignations by Lawson and Howe and so on. The problem is that the effect of the poll tax was to make people, ordinary folk, appear to be the enemy. The very people whose nerves she touched and who had voted her into power.
In 1990, Mrs. Thatcher was finally forced to resign as Prime Minister. A majority within the Conservative Party had decided that her time was past. Her policies were tearing the party and Great Britain apart.
I think that Margaret Thatcher's best speech was on the last knockings of her reign as Premier in the House, when she said, "To hell with all this, you're going to get both barrels." And it was a lovely sight to see. And that's when I realised that I was seeing a Rolls-Royce leave the scene of politics, and maybe would never see the likes of it again in my lifetime. So, there we are.
I'm enjoying this! The Right Honourable doesn't even know what it means on his house.
It seemed to me, at the time, almost like a Greek tragedy. But here was a woman who, for a brief time, had held the world in her hands, or at least held this country's world in her hands, and she felt that it was all slipping away.
The dream continued virtually to the end, and in my opinion, it was when she lost contact with the dream that she lost contact with reality.
I know where I've seen him. A picture. There's a picture of him. A miniature in a cracked glass in the attic. You know him, but you said... Yes, miss, you see, he's dead.
Underneath the arches, I dream my dreams away. Underneath the arches, on cobblestones I lay.
Pavement is my pavement.
My wife's gone to the West Indies.
Your wife's gone to the West Indies.
That's right.
Jamaica?
No, she went of her own accord. Underneath the arches.
Now it's time for a new chapter to open, and I wish John Major all the luck in the world. He'll be splendidly served, and he has the makings of a great Prime Minister.
As the war drew to a close, Churchill came to realise that the power his romantic vision of history gave him was gone. One night in despair, he said to his doctor, "I want to sleep for 1 billion years. Stupendous issues are unfolding before our eyes, yet we are only specks of dust that have settled in the night on the map of the world."
The myth which, and the vision which Churchill invoked it's centuries old, but it's there all right. It's there all right, and politicians they're very nervous of it. They're like people who don't want to, like alcoholics who don't want to open a bottle, and because they'll change, and they become captivated by it, just as so many who have drawn on it too deeply, or drunk from it too deeply, do get disoriented and derationalized.
Land of hope and glory, mother of the free. Land of hope and glory, mother of the free. How can we extol thee, who are born of thee? Brighter yet and brighter shall thy bounds be set. God that made thee mighty, make thee mightier yet. God that made thee mighty, repetition this, make thee mightier yet. I think that's it. But how shall we, that's the thing that's said, how shall we extol thee?
What does it make you feel when you hear that sort of music?
Oh, it always gives me a good feeling, yes.